record books, and I guess the reason for that is that we don't have an active aircraft manufacturer. In most cases, the breaking or setting of records of any kind are a promotional or a marketing exercise, and manufacturers obviously can find a justification to spend the quite substantial amounts of money that it costs in order to do that. Now, this aircraft here is going to be used to place Australia firmly back in the World Aviation Record books, and do it in such a way that we will stay there for many years. It's the Facet Opal, which has been designed by Scott Winton, who's been responsible for quite a few of our most prominent and successful ultralight aircraft designs in recent years. Scott started off with the Sapphire, which is one of our first fully certificated ultralight aircraft. He then refined the Sapphire into the Ultrabat, which is making inroads into world aerobatic circles, and the latest design is the Opal. Now, the Opal is not designed to break these records for any reason other than to give Australia the prestige of holding these records, and incidentally at the same time to provide some funds to a couple of charities, among them being the Royal Flying Doctor Service, which is a worthy cause. Now, in just about any way you like to look at it, the Opal is unique, as is its designer. Scott is effectively self-taught. Not only is he self-taught in aerodynamics, and his skill with aerodynamics is well demonstrated by the flight performance of this aircraft, but he's also self-taught in the use of high-tech modern composite materials involving things such as Divinycell rigid PVC foam, Derricane vinyl ester resins, and high-tech reinforcing materials such as Kevlar and carbon fibre, all of which have gone into this remarkably compact and efficient airframe. Now, before we go into the records themselves, let's have a look at the aircraft and the qualities which make it capable of breaking these records. Firstly, Scott threw away all of the conventional thinking and decided that he would design an efficient aeroplane simply by throwing away everything that wasn't needed for flight. So the aircraft really is very basic. In fact, there are very few creature comforts in the cockpit. The pilot lies effectively on his back, which reduces frontal area and therefore reduces drag, makes the aircraft more efficient. It has a rudimentary but very effective retractable landing gear, which even has cover doors so that the amount of drag generated by the outside skin of the aircraft is completely minimised, and the front wheel comes up between the driver's shins. It has a single side stick which you operate with your right hand for control of the aircraft, and that controls the aircraft through two control surfaces. It has a couple of rudders which are operated by foot pedals. It is simply a flying wing, a flying plank if you like, and in fact it's so streamlined and looks so happy and so at home in its element that it has an atmosphere about it which is reminiscent of a diving falcon, or perhaps even a stingray under the water. This aircraft, of all the aircraft I've ever seen fly, appears more at home in its element, that is airborne, than any other aircraft I've ever seen, and it really is a pleasure to see it flying so beautifully. It's obviously relatively easy to control and easy to fly. Again, an achievement. Flying wings throughout the history of aviation have been notoriously difficult to fly and notoriously hard on their designers and pilots. Scott has overcome all of those problems in one fell swoop simply by refinement of the aerodynamic design and the physical configuration and layout of the aircraft. He's come up with an aircraft which will cruise at a genuine 150 knots, which is around about 170 miles an hour, which is around about 280 kilometres per hour. Now remember, that is on only 40 horsepower. The other remarkable thing about the Opal is the fact that it's capable of covering around about 2,000 nautical miles non-stop, non-refuelled, on a moderate amount of internal fuel. So that obviously sets the aircraft up to be a record breaker. It's going to go through a program of several record-setting flights, the first one being its rate of climb. In other words, its time to 10,000 and 20,000 feet will be timed. The aircraft has proven itself capable of breaking the existing world record for time to 10,000 and 20,000 feet by a factor of around about 30%. So not only will it set the record, but it'll set a record which will be very difficult to break and which will stand for a long time. Then will come a series of distance records, one of them involving a non-stop flight from the east coast of Australia to the west coast of Australia. Now remember, I said non-stop on just 40 horsepower at around about 150 knots. Again, a mark which will be virtually impossible to break using existing technology. Now, Scott is doing it completely under his own auspices. He's doing it by himself. He's doing it at this stage without financial support. Now, if you have a look at the Facet Opal, you'll realise that it's one of the best flying billboards that it would be possible to find. The whole aircraft effectively is a billboard, and Scott is looking for sponsors who will not only help him cover the actual cost of breaking the records, but perhaps leave enough over for a handsome donation to the Royal Flying Doctor Service. Now, if you would like to assist, if you're a company or even an individual who would like their name recorded on this aircraft for posterity, and by the way, the aircraft will be preserved in a museum after the record series has been completed, get in touch with me at Concept Television. The phone number comes up at the end of the show. We'll be back right after this break.